Hello, everybody. Well, it's Friday, November 11th, 2022. In some parts of the world, they used to refer to this as Armistice Day, the day in which we mark the end of world wars in the world. Hello, I'm Andy Johnson. Welcome to today's edition of the program. This is AM Prime here on WESN. Let's tell you what's happening on this edition of the program. We will be talking in the second hour to a man named Tracy Donald. They call him Tracy D. He's a soca artist. We're talking about what is called the soca rhythm, his last set of creative work in that area. That's to come up on the program. We're also talking in this initial program with Mr. Ken Butcher. He is contesting the position of chairman in the elections to come of the People's National Movement. That's the party in government. And he's on the team headed by Karen Nunes Teixeira, who's going up for the position of political leader. That's to come minutes from now. We want to start the program, this edition of the program, however, with a discussion with Mr. Burton Hill. He's listed as the chief negotiator for the Prison Service Association in these discussions now that have gone to the special tribunal in the industrial court. They were hoping for negotiations with the CPO, Dr. Dindial. They said they'd put some things on the table, and he had responded, and they believed that, well, the negotiations were on, only to find out that is not the case. What are the advantages and disadvantages of having the matter go to the industrial court? Those things and more. Of course, we'll take you around the region on a couple of stops. We have a watch this and other features in the program. We'll tell you what's in the papers this morning, the Newsday, our partners on this program here. So I think we have Mr. Hill with us, so let's get to it. Mr. Hill, good to see you.
Good morning, Andy. Good to see you as well. Always a pleasure.
All right. Well, I want to start by, let me ask you, we'll talk about the role and function of the chief negotiator, because that appears to have been a kind of a new formula, because our understanding is that, certainly my understanding is that the person who leads negotiations on behalf of a trade union would be the president. And you used to be the president, but now you occupy a different position. Why is that? Why is it this role of chief negotiator given to you?
Well, first of all, let me clear up that misconception. One, I have never been the president of the Prison Officers Association. I held the position of general secretary from 2006 until 2012 for a 6-year period.
Yes.
Thereafter, I served as the public relations officer from 2012 until 16. And then I took a small hiatus from 16 until 18, and where I was the research and development officer. And then Mr. Richards, the sitting president, then engaged me to get involved in the negotiations process to develop the proposals, and engage with members and so on. So there is a misconception, and you touched on it, that the president of a union, or in our case, an association, always has to be the lead negotiator. Ever since assuming the office of General Secretary in 2006, the then President, Mr. Michael Williams, consulted with the Executive Committee, and most constitutions of associations will indicate that a negotiating committee shall be formed, and it may even indicate the number of persons who should be in that committee. If it's 10, our constitution says 10 persons, one of which must be the industrial relations officer. But it's really based on people's competencies. I have had the support of several executives to lead negotiations. That's why in our case, I have been designated the chief negotiator. But Mr. Richards and myself, we share the responsibility of presenting across the table and directing the discussions with the chief personnel officer.
All right. Well, thanks for that clarification there, because it's that some people understand it, that the head honcho is the one who leads all the time and so on. But I imagine it is a combination of a collection of your various roles and functions over these decades. But that's fine. But because let's get to the issue now. In reading the stories, when the matter was said to have been reported to the special tribunal, you all sort of expressed a sense of having been taken aback, because in your case, I think you'd said that you all had something on the table. You put something to Dr. Dindyal, he responded, and you thought that negotiations were then in the air, only to find out that the matter's gone to the special tribunal. Correct?
Yes, correct. The Prison Officers Association submitted proposals through the Office of General Secretary, Mr. Lester Walcott, on the 19th of March 2019. Yes, the 18th of March 2019. And we submitted those proposals at that point in time because, just to remind the population, it took the current government quite some time to make the final payments arising out of the 11 to 13 period of negotiations. The PNM government came into power in 2015, and the People's Partnership government had left an agreement in place, and that agreement had to be then honored by the new government. The new government took some time to engage the payments, and as a result of that, the personnel department, the CPO being the head of that department, indicated that they were not in that state of readiness to commence negotiations. So we submitted our proposals in March 2019. We had engaged the personnel department on several occasions through the General Secretary, Mr. Walcott. Then an indication was given that we would commence some discussions, consultations, and negotiations in 2020. That was then suspended or adjourned because of COVID. We recall that March 2020 was really a turning point for COVID and decisions around the government and closure of the borders and so on. Thereafter, we were called to meetings on March 28, 2022. March 20, 2022. And from then, we started the process of consultations and negotiations as outlined in the Prison Service Act 1302, which spells out from Section 15 to Section 21, 22, the expectations of both parties, the negotiating committee representing the officers and the government through the personnel department. We were having several very fruitful discussions. As a matter of fact, on the 10th of October, we signed a memorandum of agreement arising out of the submission of our proposals, where the leave entitlement, vacation leave entitlement of officers in the 1st and 2nd Division were amended significantly, where officers got an increase of 7 days vacation leave. So persons who were in receipt of 21 days will now be in receipt of 28 days vacation leave. Other than that, we had several other fruitful discussions where we collaborated with the personnel department, conceded on some areas based on some of the items or presentations he put to us, and we were moving back and forth. It's a dance back and forth. Sometimes one party will get their toes will be stepped on, but we were dancing along. And on the 26th of September, we received correspondence from the personnel department indicating that there was several favorable proposals that we were coming to a common ground on. We had actually agreed on some of those. Lo and behold, on the 27th of September, we got wind of something related to a dispute between us and the CPO. So we were very taken aback about that because we were just about 4 or 5 months into negotiations. And given COVID and some of the restrictions, we were very constrained for our lengthy discussions and so on. So we were really taken aback at the Prison Officers Association with the utterances of the minister that the matter was referred to the court. We were completely blindsided. You know, it really conveyed a kind of betrayal on the part of the government and the personnel department, that in the midst of having dialogue, conversation, the president of the industrial court, in our opening presentation of the industrial court this year, emphasized, and I would say overemphasized, and enunciated the value of social dialogue between employers and employees.
Well, I want to get to that.
Really
Yes, I want to go back to that, because she said that's an element in that's a kind of elephant in the room in a sense, because she said that she sought to give the impression that she would prefer that the matter, she talked about going to adopting the tripartite position, right?
Correct. You're very correct, Andy.
Yeah, but so it gets confusing, because from one relief, you had the first big demonstration through the streets of Port of Spain after the 4% was put on the table, and the union said, well, we're not taking that, and so on. And it led to the point where people then began to talk about whether or not the government should send the matter to the industrial court and to the special tribunal. But so you say, even while that was going on, and before that, you all were backing and forthing with the CPO, and you had some things on the table, but that didn't come out at all.
Well, that's where we feel a sense of betrayal, and we want to underscore the comments and the words and utterances of the president of the industrial court. In her presentation at the opening of the industrial court, the president spoke significantly about the importance of tripartitism and social dialogue. And she made the point, and we want to highlight this point, we must highlight this point, that trust is an extremely important ingredient in social dialogue and tripartism. So that we find ourselves, or we found ourselves in a real sense of bewilderment, that we were in the midst of having progressive discussions, vigorous discussions, I would say sometimes heated discussions, but that is part of the course in any social dialogue arrangement. The ILO speaks about social dialogue, which the president of the industrial court also referred to. And we felt, and we are of the view, that this approach by the government does not signal their willingness to a commitment to social dialogue with employees and workers of Trinidad and Tobago. Prison, police, and fire are the members of the protective services.
Essential services.
The protective services. And to imagine that the government, the state, would send all of the members of the protective services, making up about 15,000 employees, whose duty it is to protect and serve, to hold and treat, and to ensure public safety through the management of fires and outfitting of buildings and so on. Persons who perform such an integral service to the state as it relates to public safety, public health, public wellness, the feeling of law enforcement and all of that through the police service, for the government to not see it fit to take the journey of trust through social dialogue and simply to say, go to court. And what was more startling, Andy, is that when we approached the court and we highlighted the option of conciliation, Senior Counsel Sina Jairam, who acts on behalf of the personnel department, And I will dare say at times he also acts on behalf of the special tribunal, because there is a matter which was referred to the appeal court involving the EPA. So Sina Jairam, Sina Counsel, appears to be wearing more than one hat at any given point in time. But certainly his utterances was resounding over and over that he has no instructions. They are not at the point where they will be engaging in any voluntary process of conciliation. It's time for trial. So the Prison Officers Association is very, very deeply concerned about this approach being taken by the government, more so in light of the fact that prison officers have been murdered blatantly in Siparia, in Valencia, throughout the length and breadth of Trinidad and Tobago. Prison officers have continued to be adversely affected as a result of issues arising out of their job. And to simply sit at the table and to go through the issues affecting prison officers and to treat with their remuneration, compensation, and health and safety issues, the government has decided to send that matter to the special tribunal. And it is important for us as prison officers to sit and take note of the posture on the part of the government.
So is that figuratively speaking, you're saying that this was done sort of in the dead of night, and it was imposed on you all by the government?
Andy, we have a correspondence dated September 26th, 2022, from the CPO indicating his offer on a number of areas. He also indicated his intention to pursue some of those proposals. In that correspondence, he also indicated where we have reached a level of agreement on a number of allowances. And we have signed, as I just said, we have signed a memorandum of agreement arising out of these consultations and negotiations. And when we got the correspondence from the court, dated the 10th of October, sorry, the 20th of October, the matter was referred to the court by the Minister of Finance on the 27th of September. So we are in the throes of the dance of negotiations and consultations as prescribed by law, Prison Service Act 1302. And while we are doing that, somebody stops the music.
So, all right.
While we are in the throes of getting ahead, moving the process forward, somebody stops the music and says to us, go to court.
All right.
That's very unfortunate. Very, very unfortunate.
So bifurcate it for us a little bit. So, but because on the one hand, you know, well, maybe not to the same extent that the Prison Officers Association, people were demonstrating and marching and saying we're not taking that when 2% was put on the table, and some trade union leaders were saying that, well, the CPO himself and his department was not negotiating. They came and said, well, look, this is what we have to offer, 2%. We're not taking that. People were talking about increases in double digits, and then the CPO came back and said, well, 4%, that's the final offer. The Minister of Finance principal, among others, was saying, well, that is all we could offer. We can't move further than that. So those things were on the table, and the pushback was coming from you all. But you're saying that, well, I was going to say unbeknownst to the rest of us, things were happening outside of that and behind the scenes, at least in the case of the Prison Officers Association, that you all felt that you were getting somewhere talking with the CPO outside of what may have been happening on the streets and in the public square?
Yeah. Well, Andy, certainly you would appreciate that everything cannot be ventilated in the public domain as it relates to negotiations and consultations around salaries and compensation and allowances. So the significant and most outstanding issue which became very public had to do with the 4%, well, the 2% offer,
then 4%,
and then the 4%. But certainly, there is a myriad of allowances which we have proposed based on a number of issues affecting the prison officer, issues of traveling, issues of special responsibility allowance, qualification allowance, bilingual allowance, officers who interpret, given our Spanish-speaking population in the prison, officers who utilize their skills of occupational safety and health within the prison, officers within the construction department, legal department, K9, all of the various sections of the prison. And as a result of that, those were moving along very progressively. Very progressively.
So is it possible to conceive of a situation in which that is possible or not? That so some of this can go to the special tribunal, while what is before the CPO can continue. Is that possible?
Well, Andy, this is what is even more bewildering, because the Prison Service Act 1302, Section 21, 22. Section 18 and 19, 20, 21, and 22 indicates that when the personnel department, through the CPO, engages with the recognized association, here being the Prison Officers Association, we have 21 days in which we could meet, discuss, but it is absolutely unrealistic that in 21 days the myriad, the complex nature of the issues that we treat with could be adequately ventilated and resolved. So this CPO took on quite a different format. In my 16 years experience as a negotiator, my 16 years experience in the field of industrial relations in the public sector environment, where we would have had meetings with Stephanie Lewis, Beresford Riley, Nari Hussein, Ahmad. Ahmad. We would have had lengthy meetings to ventilate, because you have to appreciate, Andy, these are complex issues affecting employees of the prison service, and we can't now be relegated, as this CPO has done, to a paper negotiation where he's writing to us, we are writing back, and you would appreciate, as a communications expert yourself, that oral communication and written communication is an extremely different kind of medium altogether, with different requirements.
Yeah, as people say, there could always be a slip between cup and lip.
Correct, Andy. And we were trying to work along with the CPO. We understand the constraints of COVID. And we were writing, the General Secretary, Mr. Walcott, spent hours and hours and hours. I could tell you his personal time, his family time, weekends, and trying to capture in writing the issues and responses for the CPO. So we only had about 4 months, just about 4 months, to do this, and albeit with the constraint of very little oral presentations, more written communication. And as I said, on the 26th of September, we received communication from the personnel department, and according to the notice from the industrial court, the 27th of September, the minister had referred the matter. So while we are dancing, the music is turned off. We are not at all happy with this. This does not go to the heart of social dialogue, the tenets of good industrial relations practice, negotiating in good faith. It is not good. It is not good.
You think the CPO, I mean the president of the industrial court herself may feel put upon, because it appeared as though she was sending a signal in a kind of way, saying that go and exercise, the business of dialogue, right? And so she was saying that she was not welcoming the matter coming to court. Whether or not the government wanted to take a hint from that is another question. But certainly, if what it looks like in the dead of night, the government sent the matter to the special tribunal, they wonder what is the disposition of the president of the National Court.
Well, I can't speak to her disposition, but I could certainly say I paid particular attention to her utterances. I made sure I read her speech. I circulated it to persons who are interested in that field of study. We looked at it. She did an exceptionally well job of comparing the fact that there were over 100 and something odd agreements in the private sector versus the meager amount of agreements in the public sector. She dealt with the ILO related issue of social dialogue. She talked about tripartism. And in my view, I can't speak to her disposition, but if I were to interpret her commitment in her speech to good industrial relations practice within Trinidad and Tobago, it was certainly an advertisement for social dialogue in an environment of trust. That is my takeaway from her speech.
Well,
and lo and behold, Andy, we are in a position where in the middle of having the dance of social dialogue, the music is turned off.
So what is
by the government.
So speaking for the Prisons Officers Association, leaving aside whether between when this became known and now there's been any kind of meetings among yourselves, or either as the whole group of public sector representatives, or let's say you take out the national security part of it, to the extent that you'll discussed it at all, what is the way forward as you all see it?
Well, certainly, we know that the Minister of Finance in the past, this is the same gentleman who said he raised gas once, they didn't riot. He raised it twice, they didn't riot. He raised it 3 times, and they didn't riot. And at the end of saying that, he had a pretty hearty chuckle. And subsequent to that, we heard in the Parliament that he offered an apology. So we know that he is prone at times to make mistakes. He is prone to sometimes arrive at a point where he may have to turn around, and we welcome that. We welcomed the apology, and we feel that it is still possible for the Minister of Finance, who drives this process, because the CPO is basically a mouthpiece for the Minister of Finance. That's exactly what the law says, that the CPO acts on behalf of the Minister of Finance. The Minister of Finance is the one who referred the matter to the court, not the CPO, according to the notice. And we feel that like in times past, where he would have turned course, that is still productivity, making the country an attractive place to come and do business, to feel safe. And certainly if this is the disposition of the Minister of Finance, there is something utterly wrong with this approach.
All right, we're gonna have to leave it there, my friend. Thank you very much, because it's not going to be unraveled that easily. But thanks for talking with us. We will stay in touch. We'll get back in this way as is necessary. Burton Hill, the chief negotiator for the Prison Service Association, in these discussions with the government on the pay increases, the negotiations for a better deal for public service. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we're talking with Mr. Ken Butcher, who is contesting the position of chairman of the party, the People's National Movement, in elections up ahead. Stay with us.
Whether it's a room for 1, 2, 3 or more, there's a room waiting with the ocean view almost to your door. Cocoa Reef Resort and Spa, the perfect getaway when you don't want to travel far. The Cocoa Reef Resort and Spa, Crown Point, Tobago. Call 639-8571 for your reservation.
Bill and Ruth fell in love with the Benjamin Moore color Dry Sage, but they tried to match it using another brand's paint.
I mean, it's close enough.
Almost identical, really. Yeah, there it is.
Never trust another paint to be a Benjamin Moore color.
At Belgroves, celebrating life is our commitment with integrity, compassion, and dignity for your loved ones. Belgroves Funeral Home and Crematorium, serving Trinidad and Tobago for over a century.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
With society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future not always being answered.
The conversation continues. Join me, Kemuel Pascal, as the voice of the youth comes to life. We will confront the controversial topics of today's world to gain answers that are key for a better tomorrow. One and One with me, Kemuel Pascal. Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Only on WESN, Content Capital.
Here's your chance to win a brand new Mazda CX-30, courtesy Movietown. Simply spend $200 or more at dbetstoys.com, Movietown, Port of Spain. Promotion ends November 12th.
Visit the store, you better shop online. You better call us now, I'm telling you why. dbetstoys.com is Movietown, Port of Spain. Hey! Living in victory every day.
Inspire, motivate, encourage, hope. It's about topical issues. It's about everything that you would want to know about hope, about life. At the end, you're going to say, yes, if he can do it, I can do it too. If she can, I can do it too.
No matter what they say, living in victory every day.
Nicole Lawson Live, living in victory every day. Every Sunday at 8 p.m. and Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. on WESN.
Welcome back to the program. With us now is Mr. All right, so we will, in a moment, we will get to our next guest, Mr. Ken Butcher. He comes to us as somebody who's campaigning for the position of chairman of the People's National Movement. He has a history behind him. He used to be a member of parliament in the Barataria area. And at that time, he was on another side. It was opposed to the PNM, the government between 1986 and 1991, was known as the National Alliance for Reconstruction. He was a member of that party. He was a member of parliament for that, but they won the elections 33-3 at that time. There were 36 seats in the House of Representatives at the time, but they lost ignominiously in 1991 on the basis of opposition, which was led in the main by the People's National Movement. I go back further, Mr. Butcher was an intercult player, used to go to QRC and so on. So he's well known, except that he's made this switch, like I was saying, is that he came to our attention in the politics in 1986 as the Member of Parliament for Barataria Samoa, under the ticket of the NAR, which won the elections 33-3, but lost badly in 1991 on the basis of opposition mounted fiercely by groups headed by the People's National Movement. He's since become a member of that party, the People's National Movement, and is contesting the seat of chairman in the party in the elections up ahead. Mr. Butcher, thanks for coming on. Good to see you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
Yes. Anything that I said in that introduction that you want to pick up on or clear up as we start?
Could you just repeat that for me, please? Thank you.
I'm asking whether there was anything I said in that long introduction about you, who you are, who you were, and what you're seeking to be now that you want to clear up. I was talking about the fact that you, well, certainly maybe a lot of people watching this broadcast probably won't go back as far as when you were an intercult footballer, right? And then you came into the public space in 1986 as a Member of Parliament for Barataria and so on. Under the ticket of the National Alliance for Reconstruction. You won the elections 33-3, but then you lost badly in 1991 against the opposition, which was mounted fiercely by a number of groups, including the People's National Movement. Now you are asking for support inside that party, which you became a member, to be the chairman of the party. I'm trying to put all of that in context.
Okay, well, just to clarify that in 1990, I came out of the NER, and I had asked the then Prime Minister, Mr. Robinson, to resign and pass the baton over to Winston Dukaran because of differences.
Yeah, okay.
So that I didn't contest, and I wasn't in the party after that. Actually, it was the then Prime Minister, Patrick Manning, who invited me to come into the PNM, back into the PNM, because originally that is where we came from. But because of the disenchantment under what was taking place there, we came back home.
All right. So your membership and association with the PNM has some vintage in it. From some of my recollections, I actually remember there was a debate going on in the Parliament, or an issue going on in the Parliament at the time, and Mr. Manning was heard to be saying, I think you were getting under pressure from some of your former colleagues, and he was saying, leave the boy alone. I'll never forget that.
Actually, it was interesting because I was sent to the backbenchers because I had a serious problem with things that we had promised the electorate. For example, there would be no monopolies, right? And then they allowed Stack and Carib to come together. So I had a serious problem with that. Then, they had some other things. The horse racing and dog racing issue. We had a public consultation in Queen's Hall. I remember sitting down on the head table with Ken Gordon and Mr. Robinson, myself. At that time, I was in the Prime Minister's office, Mr. Robinson's office. So we had a consultation with businessmen, and after giving them certain assurances, we reneged on it, and I had a serious problem on it. I said, we met with businessmen, we gave them certain assurances, and then we ended up, not carrying through with it. And I thought my integrity was at stake there, and I said that I couldn't continue.
Yeah.
And I came out very nicely. And the day that we had to debate the horse racing bill, to give because a businessman wanted to do dog racing in Trinidad and Tobago, and I thought it was a fair offer. And what happened is that they got a bill to Parliament indicating that they will have one racing authority for horse and dog racing. And I said, well, that can be. This is a separate thing. And we had a lot of debate on it and Mr. Robinson and I fell out over that. And then some other things later that, and I said I couldn't, give my word publicly, and then you were reneging on it and you couldn't give me proper explanation.
All right, that's a good lead-up.
Manning, they put me in the backbenches, and Mr. Manning wrote me a letter on a notepad from past. And Andy, I want to tell you, when I got the letter, there was like a vibration in it. And when I read it, he gave me 3 pieces of advice. And I have it framed today. And then he invited me to come back home, and I did. Come back home to the PNL.
All right. So is it fair to say then that, in a manner of speaking, you are a Manningite in the party now led by Dr. Rowley?
No, that's not true.
Okay.
Actually, when Mr. Manning called the elections and lost, I thought at that time he should go, and I support. Then we went into the opposition, and Kamala and them they were having a time. There was a lot of allegations of corruption and so. And when Dr. Rowley came on the scene, I supported him 100% because I saw him as an upright person. I knew the family very well.
You still see him that way?
Say that again?
You still see him that way?
If what?
Do you still see him that way, Dr. Rowley?
Of course. I see him as a guy who is very straight. In politics you have a lot of aspersions and so and allegations and so. And they had a lot of stuff that the opposition brought against him in the parliament. So some really derogatory stuff. I don't want to go back into that. But a lot of mud was thrown at him. And at the end of the day, I still see him. I supported him 100%.
But you're going up for the chairmanship. You're going up for the chairmanship of the party on a slate that is not, strictly speaking, and you could put that in the context, in a better context, if you think it needs to be. That is not on his side, so to speak.
Yeah, simply because, as I said, what is taking place today is what was taking place in 1983-86. There's a lot of disenchantment outside there from members, from supporters.
Outside there, you mean in the party, in the PNM?
Say that again?
When you say disenchantment outside there, you mean in the PNM?
In 3 different areas. In the PNM, a lot of members are disenchanted. There's a disconnect between the ground and the cabinet, and I will deal with that shortly. There's a lot of disenchantment with our supporters, and a lot of disenchantment with the wider society and what's going on. And mainly one of those issues would be the crime issue, and we can deal with that as well as we go forward. But there's a lot of disenchantment, and it reminds me very much of the 83 period coming into the 86. And the status quo remains. For example, we have just lost 2 elections recently, and there's no change in strategy. The same strategy remains. All we're doing is that we're going to be replacing some members who are cabinet ministers but are also officers of the party. So it's himself unto himself, and therefore, if we continue in this vein, we will definitely lose the local government elections and the general elections. So we have to do something differently. The first thing that we have to do is to strengthen the party groups and constituency groups, because COVID-19 really did a lot of damage to us. I mean, it was worldwide in terms of the physical, but even in terms of the party structure, we were damaged pretty heavily in that the party groups couldn't continue with their activities, the constituency groups couldn't hold meetings, things like that. And therefore, post-COVID, we definitely have to have a new strategy. And nothing is coming forward in terms of new plans, new strategies. We have a gentleman who is going to be contesting against me, and we have no plans at all coming forward. The slate that they're offering, you're hearing nothing at all, and we had to put off elections, local government elections already this year.
You don't support that?
Next year.
You don't support that?
Well, yes, I support it, because if we had local elections, we'd lose. And when I say we lose, we might still hold the corporation.
But you will lose ground.
We will lose some of the areas, or some of the country areas.
Yeah.
And I think it was a wise move, although it's being challenged in court. and the court will determine that, because you can't just put off elections like that. You must have a good reason. And but I am happy that we get some time. I hope that the court rules in our favor, so we could get at least a year to get the party machinery going.
That's interesting what you're saying there, that you are hoping and praying that the court sort of takes a decision that gives the party enough time to put its house in order, because you're saying the party's house is not in order going into these local government elections.
Exactly, and if I ask you an easy question, I'm sure that you will not be able to answer me. What, as a reporter, as an interviewer, whatever it is, what feedback are you getting there? Are we ready?
I'm not sure, but
there you are.
Okay, but hear this. There's this other question: the extent to which there's this view that the political leader there's a gap between him and the party rank and file, the party groups, the party units, and so on. A lot of people.
Yes.
That is one, and then the issue of the number of members of the cabinet who are in this contest for positions in the party. Some people look askance at that, and some people put a thumbs down on it, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, I that would put a thumbs down, because you have himself onto himself. The ministers, we went to the people, we got information from them, we created a manifesto, they voted. When we got into office, the cabinet is formed, and they take that manifesto and make it government's policy. So they have to implement that. But if when they are implementing now, there must be some feedback to the party as to why you are either not implementing or why you are implementing. So we as a party now can go to the go to our members, go to the wider citizenry, and tell them, well, this is what is going on. But that disconnect is there right now. What we have to do in terms of our team, although we are a very small team, but you will realize that we extremely key positions: the political leader, the chairman, and the elections officer, the election officer. Now we will be able to work with anybody else, because they're good people outside, they're quality people vying for other positions. So once the election is finished and we are in our position, we would have won our position. The team come together and we start to work and develop a new strategy. We have to take a new direction. We cannot stay as it is, or else we will lose.
Right.
And I'm suggesting, as chairman,
yes,
if I'm chairman, the new strategy I would like to suggest, and we'll have to discuss it. The party has reached a stage now where we must operate as a business. And if we're going to operate as a business, it means that we have to look at the strategic direction of the PNM's party. We're going to run it as a business. So we're going to say, okay, new strategic direction. We will have to have our mission, our vision, our goals, our strategic objectives. We will do the internal and external analysis to find out exactly what our strengths, our weaknesses, where we are going. And then we put something into action to deliver on our goals. And therefore, two things I will ask Rowley at that stage if I'm chairman. One, I would say, Chief, the party, through the national executive, would like to meet with the cabinet at least once a month. As the first thing. So we start to make that connection between... Because
that doesn't happen?
Say that again?
That doesn't happen? There's no kind of meeting, I would say, somewhere in the middle between the leadership of the party and the cabinet, which is the leadership of the government?
At the General Council, you will have something happening there, but I don't think that the strength that I'm talking about is we will now hold the cabinet accountable for their actions in terms of implementing a manifesto. For example, let me give you an example. Let me give you an example. If I were to meet with Dr. Rowley tomorrow, I'll say, Chief, could the minister responsible for youth and national service tells us, can you tell us what is going on right now with national service? National service was first mooted in 1987 through Lincoln Myers. So that is 87 and 13 and 22, 32, about 35 years ago. National service is one of the areas that you can immediate impact on crime. National. So I would be able to ask, based on feedback, Chief, what's going on with national service? We're 7 years in the office and nothing is going on. Can you tell me what's the situation? So he will give an answer. And I say, well, look, the next meeting we have in next month. Come back and tell us, the national executive, and then we will relay it outside there, and the public will see what's going on. That we will be implementing national service, we'll be using the army, we'll be using my lads, and you have a game plan. And I don't want to go into the details of that, but that will certainly be one of the manifesto promises that we will be able to deliver on.
Well, look, I want to commit to you coming back and continuing this discussion, because we're up on a point where we have to take away, we have to go for the news. But there's a lot of significance in what you're saying and what you're seeking to want to get, how you want to redirect or help redirect the leadership of the party. And it's good if it's happening in a manner that is healthy. But we get to that when we gather back. But thank you very much for now.
Good, beautiful.
All right, Ken Butcher, contesting the position of chairman of the People's National Movement in elections that are up ahead, and as keenly contested as general elections, it seems. We will take a break. We have news to the hour. On the other side of that, we will continue with our discussions. Stay with us. This is AM Prime.
Your WESN News on the Hour. I am Marquise Akers. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. WASA provides update of weather impact on water supply. 7 held for drug and ammunition possession. No bail for woman charged with failure to report sexual offenses against a minor. And internationally, U.S. estimates 200,000 military casualties on all sides. Now for the details. WASA has provided an update on the impact of adverse weather conditions on the water supply. An update was also provided on emergency repairs at the North Oraput Water Treatment Plant.
At this time, the following plants are still out of operation, and these will include the Quarry Water Treatment Plant in Valencia. This serves the Valencia area and environs. The La Pastora McDavid intakes in the Lopino community. The Guanapo Water Treatment Plant, which serves the area of Arima. The Matura and Tompi Water Treatment Plants, which supplies the Toco and Matura areas respectively. The Blantiches Water Treatment Facility, La Follette, Rincon, and Las Cuevas. All these facilities are in the north coast part of Trinidad, and they are also out of operation due to heavy siltation of the intakes, flooding, and the high turbidity as experienced in the eastern part of the country as well.
7 persons were arrested for varying offenses, including possession of marijuana and ammunition, during coordinated anti-crime exercises conducted across the southern and western divisions. Based on intelligence and surveillance conducted, officers proceeded to the Pleasantville, Caratal, New Grand, North Trace, and Cooper Street areas where 6 persons were arrested. Meanwhile, Western Division Task Force officers conducted an anti-crime exercise between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. on Wednesday. During the exercise, they proceeded to the San Juan district, where they stopped and searched a motor vehicle with a lone male occupant. The search resulted in a quantity of marijuana being discovered in the vehicle. The driver, a 39-year-old San Juan man, was arrested in connection with the find. Investigations into all the matters are ongoing. A 39-year-old woman was remanded into custody by a magistrate after she was charged with 2 counts of failure to report sexual offenses against a minor. The debut woman was previously granted bail in the sum of $10,000 with surety. According to a police report, a 12-year-old informed a relative that from the age of 10 and on several occasions, her brother touched her inappropriately. The minor also informed the relative that sometime in 2020 and between January and February 2021, the incidents occurred again, where she was touched inappropriately. The relative failed to report the matter to the police. The child then reported the matter to a school administrator. In international news, the most senior U.S. general estimates that around 100,000 Russians and 100,000 Ukrainian soldiers have been killed or injured in the war in Ukraine. General Mark Milley, chairman of the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff, also suggested that around 40,000 civilians had died after being caught up in the conflict. The estimates are the highest offered yet by a Western official. He also said that since Kyiv was willing to re-enter talks with Moscow, offered a window for negotiations. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I am Marquise Akers. Thanks for watching.
Whether it's your family meet and eat or your own personal getaway retreat, a business trip, accommodation, or a couple's celebration, the Cocoa Reef Resort and Spa has room for you. There's always sumptuous, delicious cuisine and the gym and tennis court for a good workout routine. Then relax by the pool or on the private beach, or just head to the spa. It's also within reach. The Cocoa Reef Resort and Spa, Tobago's best beach resort. For reservations, call 639-8571 or check our website.
If these walls could talk, they'd cry uncle. They didn't plan to become offices or yoga studios, but they've stood by us, even when we got a little stir-crazy. For that, they deserve some thanks. They deserve Benjamin Moore.
At Belgroves, celebrating life is our commitment with integrity, compassion, and dignity for your loved ones. Belgroves Funeral Home and Crematorium, serving Trinidad and Tobago for over a century.
Welcome back to the program. Let's begin to take a look around the region this morning on the program. We go to Barbados, where they're saying a new minister tasked with crime prevention is speaking in the wake of a double homicide in his constituency. And we have a report from that from Barbados' CBC.
Two homicides in the city yesterday in less than 12 hours are the latest gun-related incidents being investigated by police. Barbados has so far recorded 37 homicides. It's a situation of particular concern to the man recently given specific responsibility for crime prevention here in Barbados, the Minister of State in the Office of the Attorney General, Corey Lane. He joins us live now to share his thoughts on the latest shootings and crime in general. Good to have you on, Minister Lane.
Hey, good evening, Shane, and thanks for having me.
While these gun-related crimes are escalating, we see two areas which usually have lots of traffic, both foot traffic and vehicular traffic. The public is worried. What can you tell us? What have you heard so far about these shootings?
First of all, let me start by extending my condolences to the family of those involved, because I think sometimes we forget to pause and recognize that these are human beings, these are family members, these are brothers, these are fathers, these are sons. So I want to start right there. The other thing, as you talked about the traffic, I am reminded that I'm also working on a project for the revitalization of Bridgetown with a number of other persons. And we plan to bring more traffic into Bridgetown. We plan to bring cruise tourism into Bridgetown in a major way. We plan to spice up the Constitution River to have night entertainment. And what happened yesterday and our plans are not compatible. So that even speaks even more in terms of what we got to do now for the short and medium term, and also what we continue to do for the long term. I want to tell Barbadians that the work continues in earnest and the work will step up in a few weeks. And what do I mean by that? There are a number of programs, existing programs, that we are going to be scaling up. So there are lots of young people idle across Barbados. There are lots of gang members, feuding gang members, something that we cannot run away from. And although we've employed our short-term measures of direct intervention, speaking directly to where these feuds are happening, there are lots of programs that speak to medium and long-term rehabilitation and preventative methods of our young people and our community members that we are going to be scaling up. And then on top of that, we're going to be adding a number of innovative, powerful programs after speaking to a number of stakeholders out there.
Now, people may want to know, these two incidents happened in your constituency. How are your constituents feeling at this time?
Sadly, as I speak to them, a lot of them becoming numb to it. The average Barbadian, when they hear of these things, especially when we get 2 or 3 pretty close, they say, whoa, what's happening? What's happening in Barbados and so on. When I speak to constituents, like I've moved around in the afternoon, it's basically like, yeah, we really got to get this thing under control. But a lot of them are also looking inward, and that is part of the problem also. One of the things that sociologically you would see in Barbados, we've moved from community to individualism. We've moved from the village to meism. So there's a lot of focus on me and I need, and these are the things, yes, you need to look out for yourself, you need to get that house, you need to get that job. But collectively, if we live in a society without investment, without good GDP, without certain things, it's very difficult to get those very jobs. It's very difficult for housing and private sector to facilitate the housing. So when we talk about we in this together, a lot of people sum it down to a cliche, not recognizing that we literally in this together, and we got to come out of it being together and working together.
Now, some initial research has been done by Roger Husbands of Drug Education and Counseling Services, and he was saying that what his research is showing up that there is a gang in nearly every school in the parish of St. Michael, and a lot of them in the city. Is there any part of your plan focused on breaking up gang activity and that level of violence that surrounds that, especially in the city?
Certainly. My research goes a little bit wider because I was given information from the Criminal Justice Research Unit, which really looked at gangs and crime in Barbados in 2015, in particular in 2018. And we're seeing that the gangs are really right across Barbados, in every parish, in every constituency, in every school. And it's not really multiple gangs. What has happened recently, and I've seen some WhatsApps going out about it, the WhatsApps are pretty on point. And that there's been a lot of consolidation of the gang. So in some cases where research pointed to 52 gangs, they actually can see the consolidation into 2 gangs, which makes them more powerful, but also makes the solution a little easier when you have less to deal with. So one of the things we've been doing, and we did the launch at Grant Leonard to the anti-bullying, and what we are saying to schools, particularly to parents, principals, and police, that we're going to have zero tolerance for this gang thing, the gang signs and all of that. We actually got to recognize them, and we got to say it to parents. We got to sensitize parents. We're having none of that. We're saying to the schools, we're having none of that. So we are actually going to stamp it out in many different ways. We have the carrot, where we're going to propose not just what we're going to take from the children, but what we're going to give them in exchange. And we do have the stick, which the Attorney General, his part of law enforcement and law enforcement, will continue to deal with in terms of bringing the full force of Barbados to say that we will not be held hostage by a few, and there'll be a zero tolerance to this nonsense. The area I'm focusing on more is not fighting necessarily against the criminal, but working with people to prevent it and working with those already in it and how we can get rehabilitation and get them on a better path.
Well, listen, I want to thank you so much, Minister Lane, for coming and sharing with us your plans going forward. We all would like to see an end to this violent activity here in Barbados. You keep safe and continue the fight. We will be a part of it with you right here as we deliver the news here on CBC News Night. You be safe until the next time we chat.
Thank you.
All right, so we go to Greendot now, where we know that the Prime Minister, Mr. Nikon Mitchell, is among the youngest to have held that post anywhere in the region. He was at 44, became Prime Minister of Greendot in the last elections. Well, there's somebody younger than him. And so that person is described as the youngest member of the legislature in a discussion about politics and what he wants to see for people his age. Let's take a look at that.
The youngest senator in Grenada's parliament, Nilan Franklin, says he has always wanted to be of service to people. And now that he has accepted this position, he takes it seriously. As a young senator, Franklin, a member of the New National Party, believes now is the time for young people to get involved in politics. He pointed to the National Youth Parliament as one area that stimulates potential youth development.
It's important that we understand where we are going, not just as Grenadians, but people in the world, human beings generally. When you look at the political demographic globally, you realize that it's more the middle age to the upper age or older folks, and they make decisions for what that would affect us as the younger generation. It is important, in my view, for us as young people to get involved so that the policymakers could understand how we feel and what we think is best for us.
The young senator says he believes he has a responsibility to set a positive standard for others to follow.
This is an excellent opportunity, and it's one that has to be looked at carefully on my path, because I don't want to obscure the ability of, or hinder the ability of other young people, or the perception of other young people of politics, and deter them from wanting to get involved. And I think I will use the opportunity to encourage as much young people to get involved.
Appearing on GBN's To The Point program Tuesday, Franklin noted a great part of his grooming came from within the walls of the Grenada Broadcasting Network. The young senator was put on the spot somewhat by host GT when he was asked this question, to which he responded as such.
You know, if an opportunity for you is presented to you to go further in this, to help in further nation building, would you accept it? When I'm saying opportunity, well, the current party says, you know, Neil, and I think we could offer you a place in this in the government that could lead you to help in further developing Grenada. Would that be something you would consider?
Like I said earlier, I depend heavily on the Almighty Father to guide me, and at this time I don't want to be one who opposes for opposing's sake, but to give criticism where criticism is due and necessary, and to hold, especially the current administration, because they've campaigned on things and made promises that a lot of, especially young people, expect and expected to see. So my responsibility now is to hold them accountable to what they've promised and what they are doing.
All right, well, right here back with us now, we're talking with a gentleman known as Tracy D. His correct name is Tracy Donald. He's a soca artist and musician and a performer. We tell you lots more about his abilities as we continue to talk. But let's welcome him to the program, to the set. Good to see you.
Good morning, Mr. Johnson. Good morning.
All right, so you say you're a self-taught singer and performer of Trinidad soil. You've been, you have many crafted skills and many cultures, both local and foreign. And you're a versatile artist, and you can satisfy any palate, any different ethnicity. Let's talk a little bit about that.
No problem. Well, basically, I'm an artist that I try to satisfy my audience, no matter what the genre is. Once I know what music I'm more or less familiar with, I fit in and adapt accordingly. Whether it's chutney, soca, R&B, dancehall, reggae, I sing for all occasions, basically.
Right, reggaeton, soca, chutney, dancehall. Is that separate, or there's a genre called soca, chutney, dancehall?
Everything basically in music is kind of related, you know, because what they say is that reggaeton came from soca, and dancehall came from soca/reggae. So everything is partially related in the musical aspect.
Yeah. Let's sort of put me out of my ignorance a little bit. What is a big reggaeton song, for instance? I don't have a clue.
A big reggaeton song, Viva la Boca.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They have a lot of different.
Viva Luca.
Yeah.
That's what you call reggaeton.
Well, currently, the biggest.
I thought that was sort of Latin.
The biggest reggaeton artist would be Pitbull.
Mm-hmm. Pitbull.
If you're looking at crossover, yeah.
All right. And so you're not sort of less comfortable in some forms as opposed to others?
I'm more versatile. I started off singing R&B with an a cappella group by the name of Foresight way back in the days. And from there I transcended.
That's in Trinidad?
Yes, in Trinidad.
A group called Foresight?
Yeah, when I was a little boy. As not just barely a teenager, party time days.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and transcended into
party time. That's the days with people like Wendell Constantine and so on?
Very much so. Very much. That was the boss. And I'm a Brian Haynes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And from there I transcended into a band by the name of Kalyan.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
While Kalyan was phasing out, I was phasing in. I was the last phase of Kalyan.
Kalyan was the band at a point in time?
Yes. Yeah. Alvin Dempster and Stokely Carmichael and these guys, you know. And from there, I got a break. I was performing at a show in the Anchorage. Mm-hmm. And Mr. Farid Mamali came to me and he said, I need you to have a chat with you. And I became a member of Traffic.
Mm-hmm. He was the manager of Traffic.
He was the man in charge at the time. Yeah. And from there, I sang with Traffic for a couple of years. That's when Sean Kruth was about phasing out of the band, trying to leaving at the time. Sean was on top of the game at the time.
Sean Winchester.
He was the man. Yes, he was the man. So I was more or less like second fiddle to Sean at the time. So I stayed with the band a couple of years, a couple of seasons. And from there, I kind of crossed over to the Indian circuit, where I started to do work with a band by the name of Melobugs.
Melobugs.
Rishi Mahatu.
Yes.
And he kind of transcended my as you just put it, my ethnic genre started to spread a bit more. And with Melobugs, I spent about 2 to 3 years. The band sort of moved on, and I went to a band by the name of Maya. And from there, Maya, out of Grandi, so Rishi Singh. He's the band leader / lead, one of the lead frontline vocalists, Abita Bootram. Big up to the guys. Yeah. And I've been with the band for like 12 to 13 years.
And you're still with them?
I'm still with the band, yes.
So that's like chutney music?
That's chutney / Bollywood, a bit of crossover. They do all genres as well. But I'm the versatile aspect of the band.
To what extent that is unique? Somebody who's versatile across a range of genres. There are not many people like you, right?
Well, I've in my travels across the world, people seem to be kind of amazed by a guy that I already look like an ethnicity that I can't really identify for sure, as in Trinidad. You know, we call us mix or Dougla. But when I travel, people are like, man, you singing all these different styles of music. And then when they hear me say soca, they say, soca. I say, yeah, that's my native, that is me. Soca is me.
Yeah. So you could be an Enrique Gates, yes, one, you could be a Sean Paul another time, and then you could be a Colin Lucas another time.
Well, I would hope so. But I hope the audience would deem it fit as that, yes, hopefully.
Right, so let's talk about, so you've been campaigned in polar climes for some period of time. You see here, you've been across the Scandinavian countries and other parts of Europe.
Yes, I have done a couple of carnivals in the Scandinavian zone. I've done Notting Hill a couple of times, done the Swedish carnival, which is a bit different from ours. It's not as blah as Trinidad. You know, we have the most grand carnival in the world. And Germany carnival, Denmark as well. But German carnival is probably the closest, German and Notting Hill. Germany carnival is surprisingly has a lot of trainees involved. So it was...
And where is that, in Frankfurt or in Hamburg or
in Frankfurt, yeah.
Yeah, and well, Denmark, it's Copenhagen.
Copenhagen,
yeah.
That's correct.
But they tend to call their carnivals winter carnivals, right?
Yes,
yeah.
it's as I said, those carnivals involve a lot of diversity, whereas they have other elements other than soca, as you would know. They'd have a little reggae playing, pop music, a bit of fusion. So, you know, you'll have all sorts of different music playing actually on the road or at the actual venue wherever you perform. So it's nice.
So on the road, like, you know, how we...
Yeah, they actually have well, not to our magnitude, but mini parades on the road in Germany. Notting Hill is probably the biggest carnival in the European zone.
And closest to ours.
Closest to ours, yeah, because that has an influx of Caribbean people of a high magnitude.
Yeah.
Notting Hill is very nice.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are parts of London that are populated by us, right?
Very, 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 very much so, very much so.
In the main.
Very
right?
much so.
Mm. So what are you doing now?
Currently, I'm kind of spread thinly because I'm doing a lot of different projects of different genres, as you would know. I'm doing my project that I came today to speak about mainly is with a production house by the name of Money Circle.
Money Circle?
Yeah. Littleville, Mr. Ronaldo Villafana, very good friend of mine, he's a young producer. Kudos to you, brother. He is very, 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 very awesome. Very awesome. I also do work with Paul Seat, Mr. Gary Pollard, S2M, Mr. Stephen Mohammed, and a few other houses, just to mention a few. Mr. Anil Hadid Singh, Sonaris, not to leave out the general himself as well.
All right. I think we have something that we want the viewers to take a taste of it. Let's see if they bring it up and get a sense of exactly where you're coming from, where you've come from.
Money Circle.
Put it up.
They were playing the track. I thought they would play the song, but you know, it's all good. I would fit in accordingly.
There's the track. So how do you sit down to put these things together?
Music is something that is entrenched in your actual in your persona. It's either once you love it, things come to mind, ideas come to mind. It's part of your life. Things that you see happen, things that you experience, things that you see friends and family experience, and you get ideas. Sometimes you get an idea, you develop it, you write it, and that's not it, and you write it over. And sometimes someone might just hit your line and whoa, yeah, that's a good idea, and you slip in a line in the song that you already have. That you know, that it is something that is spontaneous. Sometimes planned, but music in itself it has to be entrenched in something that you love, your passion.
And sometimes it's collaborative with other people.
Of course. Some artists, well, myself, I've done collaborative efforts with a couple aforementioned production houses, as well as people that I've worked with in the industry as well. I've done stuff with Denise Belfon and Soca Elvis, Ravi B, just to name a few stuff that I've done. Out of the Pungalungs factory, big up the Pungalungs as well. So I've been across the board with regards to.
Who was that group, the Pungalung factory?
The Pungalungs factory is actually is a friend of mine. He is a producer / DJ / radio TV announcer / He's a very he's also very diverse and versatile as well, but he's responsible for a lot of mega songs in the chutney industry as well. I used to work with him side by side with regards to doing some background vocals and doing a couple of my tracks as well.
Yeah, because I often, I don't hear it as much as I used to before.
Big Rich.
Yeah, the Pungalung's factory.
Yeah, well, the chutney industry is an industry that it fluctuates, it's all according to the artists tend to have a lot of say with regards to how the production goes, with how the audience leans, because sometimes a big song will come out of Mahatu, which is Rishi Mahatu, will come out of his production house, and a big song come out of Pungalungs. Then it's an industry that fluctuates, and as I say, the artists, according to how big a song is, it will determine who is really on the lips of the audience.
Yeah. Where are you from in Trinidad and Tobago? What got you started?
I am originally from Laventil, a proud native of Laventil. I currently reside in San Juan, and I've lived in Arima as well. But I've been in San Juan for like almost 20 years, so it's a very safe and loving environment. Can't say anything else.
Okay, so and you're here to do something, in Trinidad at the moment?
At the moment, I intend to, my general purpose through music and as an individual is to make a positive input and a positive output, I should say, to the public, to the youths, to people who have so much on their minds, which is with this current situation of COVID and the economy and crime, and music is something that we turn to transcend and make our hearts feel a little relief, to take us away from all of this heaviness. So that's my main purpose, is to make people feel, put a smile on people's faces sometimes.
I really hope that this helps you continue on that journey, man. Thank you very much.
Grace of God.
Tracy D.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
You're very welcome. Talent in a number of forms. Before we go, we want to ask you to watch this, and this is about, the James Bond theme, but what most people don't know is that it was originally written for someone else. The melody first appeared in a song called Bad Sign, Good Sign by someone called Monty Norman. It was produced to be part of a musical called A House for Mr. Biswas. Did you know that? Which was based on a novel of the same name by Trinidad and Tobago's own V.S. Naipaul. The musical never happened and eventually Norman repurposed the melody when he was hired to write music for the first James Bond flick, the one called Dr. No, in 1962. Take a look at this.
Where did the James Bond theme come from?
It came from a musical that Julian Moore and I were writing called A House of Mr. Biswas, based on V.S. Naipaul's novel.
Monty's musical, based on the story of an Asian community, featured traditional Indian instruments, but it never made the stage.
So I went to my bottom drawer, found this number that I'd always liked, and played it to myself. And I was born with this unlucky sneeze, and what is worse, I came into the world the wrong way round. So it had this very Asian quality.
Well, I get the Indian feel, but where is James Bond in all that?
I thought, what would happen if I split the notes? So I went... And immediately, the moment I did that, I realized that this was what I was looking for.
And the producers agreed. They brought in a new young talent called John Barry to arrange the piece, and both the film and the theme tune were a huge hit. Barry's name went on to become synonymous with 007, which led many people to think he had composed the theme tune. But Monty's creation had set the tone for Bond.
I'd like to send a cable.
Yes, of course.
His sexiness, his mystery, his ruthlessness, it's all there in a few notes.
Good night. Good night, Mr. Bond.
And obviously, the world agrees.
And 50 years on, we want to hear Monty's theme on the traditional Indian instruments that inspired it. International sitar player Jonathan Mayer and fellow musicians perform it in the shadow of MI6.
Monty Norman wrote this tune,
yes,
and it's conquered the world. How do you feel about that?
I'm very proud of it, very proud. I'm happy that it's 50 years on, and I'm happy that I'm still here.
There you go. For your ears only, the tune from a composer's bottom drawer that's conquered the world.
And that's our broadcast for this edition of the program. We tell you, as always, you can get in touch with us at WESNCC. Send your emails to all our social media platforms at amprime@wesncc.com. In half an hour or less than that, we have news at the top of the hour, followed by today's edition of Talking Point with Sean Small. But for now, thanks for watching. I'm Andy Johnson. See you next time.
WESN.
I'm Keaton Shaw, and we are WESN, the content capital. What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers? Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best.